I have a special announcement, so no intro or anything like that. I want you all to know that we're moving, and this really is about sufficiency and connection. There are moments that come sometimes quietly and then all at once when a question stops being philosophical and starts becoming practical. For Anne and me, that question is this: what is enough, and what is it for? You see, after 32 years in our home, we are in the midst of a significant transition. We're moving from a 2,300 square foot, multiple closets, two walk in storage areas, and the accumulated contents of 3 decades into a one bedroom, one bath apartment downstairs, roughly 1,000 square feet. And we're doing it by choice. Not because we have to, but because we want to make space for something that matters more. Our daughter, Amber, her husband, Justin, and our grandchildren, Logan and Piper, are planning to move in before the school year begins in August, which means we're making room, literally. So think about it, the outer work, letting go. If you ever lived in a home for 30 plus years, you can probably imagine what this process looks like. Closets that quietly filled up over time, storage areas that became repositories of, we might need this someday, and objects that carry stories, many of them easy to release, and some of them surprisingly not. A box of old papers, a tool you haven't used in years, a random item that somehow feels harder to let go than it should. And yet, piece by piece, we're letting go, donating, gifting, sharing. By the way, our local Buy Nothing group had become very active. With each release, there's a little more space, not just in the house, but in us. So there's also the inner work, kind of rethinking this whole idea of more. We live in a culture that quietly and sometimes loudly reinforces a simple idea: more is better. Actually, it's one of the great untruths. More space, more storage, more comfort, more accumulation. But what if that's actually not true? What if more isn't the goal? What if the deeper question is what supports life, connection, and meaning? This move is, in many ways, an experiment in that question. We're not downsizing because we're forced to, we're choosing to live with less space and fewer possessions so we can live with more connection. It's really a living expression of sufficiency. In the one cause framework, one of the four great truths is sufficiency. There is already and always enough when we remember how to share. It's one thing to write about that, it's another thing to live it. This transition is giving us the opportunity to do both, to ask what we truly need, what can be shared, what can be released back into the community, and perhaps most importantly, what kind of life we are actually trying to create. So then there's the messy middle. I won't pretend this is all graceful and serene. There are moments of overwhelm, moments of second guessing, and moments of why did we keep all this stuff? And also moments of clarity, moments of lightness, many of them actually, and moments where it feels like we're aligning our lives more closely with what we say matters. Yes, we're making room for the future. Logan just turned 5, and Piper, who just turned 3, they don't care about square footage. They care about connection, particularly with their grandma and granddude. They care about shared meals, about being together. And in a very real sense, this move is about making room for that future, not just physically, but relationally as well. So, may I extend an invitation? No, you don't have to move houses to explore this, but you might consider asking, what is enough for me right now? What am I holding on to that I no longer need? Where could I make a little more space for life, for connection, maybe even for something new? We'll keep sharing pieces of this journey along the way, including, quite possibly, a steady stream of items looking for new homes. But more than that, we're exploring what it means to live into sufficiency, not as an idea, but as a way of life.